Shavuot, when we celebrate the receiving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. So we think a lot about that celebration of what it means to be us, what it means to be what's special about being us. We start with just a little bit of singing to get into the Shabbat spirit. Bim bam, bim 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 bam, bim 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 bam. Bim bam, bim 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 bam, bim 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 bam. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat 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 shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat 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 shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shalom, Shabbat, Shalom, Shabbat, Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Bim, bam, bim, 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 bam, bim, 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 bam. Bim, bam, bim, 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 bam. Bim, 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 bam. And for anyone online who's joining us for the very first time, you can download a virtual Siddur. Mike Stombaugh, who runs our administration for Temple Sinai, uploads a custom Siddur at sinaireno.org that automatically goes, when you go to the next page, you're on the page that we're on. Everyone who's here reading out of the Mishkan Tefillah gets to have to turn to whatever page I say. So those of you who are lucky to have the virtual Siddur can enjoy that. Anyone who's here for the first time, welcome. And no requirements to know all the Hebrew. We like lies, we like singing, we like not singing. We like to welcome all forms of participation and joy. We'll start together with a short reading on the bottom of page 6. In Mishkan Tefillah. We read together, "May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship. May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, hopes to nurture. May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity. May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet. May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness. May this synagogue be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life." And now we invite up Nathan Gorden to light our Shabbat candles right here. And we turn together to page 2. So we bless them together. Great. How we do it? May our spirits be as sturdy as the wax on these candles.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Yeah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Thank you, Nathan. We turn together with the joy of gathering on page 10 with the traditional melody of, at the top, Hine Matov Umanayim, how good and how pleasant it is that brothers and sisters dwell here together. Hine matov umanayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim, shevet achim gam yachad. And for our next pre-service song, the top of page 11, we have Dodi Lee. Of personal significance to me, in the month of June, many people, I among them, it's our wedding anniversary. Laura and I are about to celebrate our 7th anniversary. As part of our wedding, I did an arrangement of Dodi Lee for flute, violin, and viola, because those were my friends who were there. It's a lovely tune, and we think often on Shavuot of the covenant between God and the people of Israel as Torah was received at Sinai, in all the different ways that can look and be defined personally, divinely. And Dodi Lee is a very common wedding song, so I wanted to include it. So together, Dodi Lee vani lo haroeh Bashoshanim Dodi Li Mizotola Min Hamidbar Mizotola Min Hamidbar Dodi Li Dodi Li vani lo haroeh Bashoshanim Dodi Li. And in an upbeat spirit at the bottom of the same page, page 11, we have Eleh Chamda Libi, God is my heart's desire, appear, do not hide. Eleh Chamda Libi, Chusana ve'al natitalem. Eleh Chamda, Chamda Libi, Chusana ve'al natitalam. Eleh Chamda, Chamda Libi, Chusana ve'al natitalam. And as we greet the Sabbath bride, the spirit that comes with the day of rest, we have Lecha Dodi on page 20. Those who are here, we do, for all of us, we do verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. And when we get to verse 9, the Bo'iva Shalom, we have our doors right here. But if you're joining us virtually, it can be customary to face wherever the door is, wherever you are. It doesn't have to be in any particular direction, so long as there's good feng shui. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shamor v'zachor bedibur echad, Hishmianu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shemul tiferet ve'litila. Lecha דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, אורי אורי שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. We can all be seated together. On just the next page over, page 22, we have Tzadik Katamar Yifrach, another upbeat melody. The righteous bloom like a date palm. They thrive like a cedar in Lebanon, planted in the house of Adonai. They flourish in the courts of our God. Tzadik Katamar. Tzadik Katamar Yifrach, Yifrach, Tzadik Katamar Yifrach. Tzadik Katamar Yifrach, Yifrach, Tzadik Katamar Yifrach. Keres balvanon yiske, Keres balvanon yiske, Keres balvanon yiske, yiske. Keres balvanon yiske, Keres balvanon yiske, Keres balvanon yiske, yiske. Tzadik Katamar Yifrach, Yifrach, Tzadik Katamar Yifrach. Tzadik Katamar Yifrach, Yifrach, Tzadik Katamar Yifrach. Keres balvanon yiske, Keres balvanon yiske, Keres balvanon yiske, yiske. Keres balvanon yiske, Keres balvanon yiske, Keres balvanon yiske, yiske. And now as we more officially come together and happily seeing some more faces in here, probably as well as in the virtual environment, on page 26, we have our Chatzi Kaddish marking the area between the sections of our service. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabba be'alma divrach yirutei ve'amlich malchutei b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayedecho beit Yisrael bagala bagala uv'izman kariv ve'meru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevarach le'alam ulal me'al maya yitbarach yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitale v'yithalal shmei d'kusha brichu leila min kol birchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Dahamiran Belma Vimeru. Amen. And our official start to the service in the next section on page 28 is the Baruch Hu, and all who are currently able may rise as we face Sparks and eventually Israel. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Baruch Hu et Adonai. Hamevorach Baruch Adonai Hamevorach Hamevorach Leolam Vaed Hamevorach Hamevorach Leolam Vaed. We may be seated. For a reading on page 31. Is that true? Yes, it is true. In the middle of the page together. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand on certain of the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim. Our evening prayer. On the following page, page 32, the lovely Debbie Friedman melody of Ahavat Olam, everlasting love. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Havta, Amcha Havta. Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta, al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shochbeinu, uvkumenu nasiach bechukecha, Venismach bedivrei Toratecha, uvmitzvotecha leolam vaed. Ki heim chayenu, ve'orech yameinu, uvahem negei yomam v'layla, negei yomam v'layla. Be'ahavatcha al tasir, mimenu leolamim. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael, ohev amo Yisrael. And next, our central prayer, the Shema, on page 34. Hands over the eyes if we wish. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Page 36, following with the Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה, אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם emet. Back in English on page 39, the bottom reading responsively. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt, we were delivered at Sinai. We bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again, we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. Speaking of singing on the shores of the sea, page 40, Mi Chamocha. Yai lai 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 la 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 lai lai lai, yai lai lai la lai la 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 lai, yai lai la lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osefele, nora tehilot osefele. Malechutecha rahu vanecha, bokei ayam lifnei Moshe, zelianu ve'amru, zelianu ve'ameru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. V'nemar kifad Adonai et Yaakov, ugalo miyad chazak mimenu, baruch atah Adonai Gal Yisrael. And then on page 43, we continue in the middle together. Give us a place to rest, Adonai our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. On page 47, at the top, together, pray as if everything depended on God, act as if everything depended on you. And with that, we go to the Amidah. All who are currently able may rise and face the ark. Adonai sefatai tiftahu fi agitehi latecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Velohei Avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Velohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, El Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezocher Chastei Avot Ve'imahot, Umevi Geulah Livnei Bneihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Bezrat Sarah. Next page. Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai, V'chayei Hakol Atah Rav V'Hoshia, Norid Hatal, Mechalkel Chaim B'Chesed, Mechayei Hakol B'Rachamim. Somech noflim verofech holim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato lishenei afar, michamocha bal gevurot, umido melach, melech menid umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'emanata l'hachayot ha'kol. Baruch atah Adonai, mechayei ha'kol. Next page. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kdoshim b'chol yom yehalalucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el ha'kadosh. We continue silently, either reading on your own until page 62 or thinking on your own. When you're finished, please be seated. Closing the Amidah with our most important and frequent prayer, that for peace, on page 60, the Shalom Rav. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. And now, given the short notice with which I was delegated to lead tonight, I will not be chanting a Torah portion in its entirety. So since we won't be getting the scrolls out, I did at least want to read a little bit of it in English. And prior to doing so, I have a personal tradition that started in my former community in Madison, Wisconsin, of saying the study blessing before reading verses of Torah in our vernacular. So on page 86, I started with a little nigun. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, vetzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Commanding us not just to read the words of Torah, but engage with them, as I hope we will. I grabbed a bulletin back there when I realized that this was not actually, I did not have a Torah scroll in front of me written in English. So I'm glad that this exists. The beginning of Parshat Bamidbar. Last week, we got to say Chazak, Chazat, Vinit Chazek, be strong, we will all be strengthened. At the end of the book of Leviticus, here we begin the book of Numbers. On the first day of the second month, in the second year following the exodus from the land of Egypt, the Eternal One spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the tent of meeting, saying, "Take a census of the whole Israelite company of fighters by the clans of its ancestral houses, listing the names, every male, head by head. You and Aaron shall record them by their groups from the age of 20 years up, all those in Israel who are able to bear arms. Associated with you shall be a representative of each tribe, each one the head of his ancestral house." And as you can see, first day of the second month, second year following the exodus from Egypt, there are going to be 38 years left wandering the desert. They had to be prepared. And I'll be discussing more of this portion in a little bit, but very importantly, before then, I want to read some names in advance of our Misha Berach of people in our community who could use extra healing and anything it takes to get them back to full health. After I read this list, if you have any names of people who could currently use some healing, I'll be going around this room, and you can enter them into the comments of our virtual stream, and they'll appear to everyone else watching. So we have Wendy Alderman, Laura Ann Borsoff, Neil Calder, Laura Cohen, Jeff Gingold, Jennifer Gordon, Stephen Gould, Al Grossman, Marlene Harris, Harvey Higdon, Laura Jawad, Kevin Knox, Dave Levine, Amma Lovelace, Harav Miriam Yael Chaya Batsara, Tim Ober, Judy Ramos, Ray Riker, Marilyn Roberts, Shirley Rutkovitz, Sarah Batchava, Marianne Schenker, Helene Spinner, Jessica Waditz, Bobby Wells, Usher Zalick, Kathy Bartlett, everyone affected by the coronavirus, and the Jewish and all other communities enduring the ongoing events in Ukraine. And as I pass through the room, Any more names to offer? Thank you, Matt. And in their honor and towards their aid, on page 253, we have the Mishaberach. Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Apologies to anyone on the live stream for the mic bump. Why do we count populations with a census? These days, our census is there to help schools determine zoning, funding, and where to construct new schools based on population trends, but sometimes to the detriment of marginalized communities through de facto segregation. It can advise companies on where to build supermarkets, but population numbers alone don't cure the problem of food deserts. Our census is supposed to be a guide for fair, proportional representation in our legislative bodies. But due to rampant gerrymandering, nobody is under any illusion that all of our votes have the equal value that they should aspire to have. Our current census has its share of impactful problems, and so does the census prescribed in Parashat Bamidbar when we read it with our modern eyes. In the portion, God commands Moses to conduct a census, counting the men from each tribe who are 20 years old and up. They would be assembled for military service, and their numbers would be tallied with a contribution of a half shekel per person. Military might and taxation were the plain motivations. No women were counted. Sivan Rotholtz, a renowned gynocentric Torah scholar, takes issue with Rabbi Isaac Arama's assertion that God chose to count those especially dear to him, the men 20 years and older, since as his most precious pearls, Rabbi Arama's words, not mine, men 20 years and older are the ones to whom God had given birth, which we nowadays would find as an obviously problematic exclusionary notion. The abundance of spiritual, scholarly, and administrative leadership by women in many of today's Jewish institutions are finally starting to correct thousands of years of such exclusion. And we all, including those of us who aspire to be allies, have a role in continuing to rectify that exclusion. Members of the tribe of Levi were also not included in the census of Bamidbar, so that they could carry out their ritual duties rather than go to war. Rashi speculates that they may have been exempt from military service because God was grateful to them for being the tribe that didn't worship the golden calf. A version of this phenomenon still exists with military exemptions for certain religious groups within the modern state of Israel, while secular and progressive Jews continue to be conscripted into national military service. Now, while the issue of forced military service for some and the invisibility of women in many parts of our foundational text are easy for us to relate to, the numbers in this portion themselves are more difficult to connect to on an emotional level. When I was teaching my Sinai school class about the large numbers of deaths from the Holocaust, group by group, I tried my best to compare available numbers to visibly familiar entities. And I want to do the same for the census described in Bamidbar, if only to show that even when we understand what a number of people might have looked like in total, that understanding still might fail to connect to us on an emotional level. The men qualified for military service from the tribe of Menashe numbered 32,000, which is slightly more than a full Mackey Stadium, which admittedly you never see in Mackey Stadium. The tribe of Issachar contributed 54,400 soldiers, almost identical to the entire population of Carson City, which we can envision. Any of us who've driven into Carson City, it's as if everyone in there was a soldier from the tribe of Issachar. The largest tribal representation came from Judah at 74,600, which is almost the total attendance of the last officially open Burning Man event in 2019, which gives us an image of desert wanderers that may be familiar to some here. I was thinking Rabbi Myra would be here. I know that she's done Burning Man. If you're out there watching, you totally get it. The total military numbers of the tribes of Israel was 603,550, similar to the total combined populations of Washoe County, Carson City, and our bordering counties in Nevada. As many people as that is to imagine, if we also counted all of the women, the men under 20, and the tribe of Levi, we would easily reach a total similar to Clark County of 1.5 million people wandering in the Sinai Desert together. If we mentally imagine the tribes of Israel as they look in a movie, that's far more people than one could fit into a single frame. And thinking of them in a landscape like the one that surrounds us here in Nevada, the notion of sustaining that many hungry and thirsty human beings brings a higher level of appreciation for the divine concept of manna, described a few chapters later in Numbers 11, as essential sustenance for that massive amount of people who supposedly became our ancestors successfully. Now, chapters 1 and 2 of Numbers are almost identical to each other, though chapter 2 goes into slightly greater detail on the military strategies of planned locations of tribal battalions and which order they would do their attacks. The repetitions of the numbers and names of tribal representatives is one of many examples in Torah where if something is written twice, it must be especially important. In addition to naming each tribe's representative, it also notes in chapter 1, verse 18, that each man aged 20 and up was individually recorded by name, age, and lineage. Naming and describing individuals communicates an entirely different personal gravity. Names mean more to us than numbers do. As I attempted to describe the impact of the Holocaust through collective numbers and achieved minimal impact on the students present, our class's detailed discussion of Anne Frank connected in a way that felt much more relatable and impactful. She was their age. In describing recent painful events, it's one thing for me to say that 19 children and 2 teachers were killed in Uvalde, Texas. But when we say the mourner's Kaddish a few minutes from now, the reality of their loss feels entirely different when we say each of their names, with them and their grieving loved ones in mind. Nevi Alyssa Bravo, Jacqueline Cazares, McKenna Lee Elrod, Jose Manuel Flores Jr., Eliana Garcia, Irma Garcia, Uzziah Garcia, Amarillo Garza, Xavier Lopez, Jace Carmela Luavanos, Tess Mata, Miranda Mathis, Ava Morales, Alethea Ramirez, Annabelle Rodriguez, Maite Rodriguez, Lexi Rubio, Layla Salazar, Jayla Nicole Silguero, Eliana Torres, and Rogelio Torres. May all of their memories be a blessing, and may they be an urgent call for immediate collective action. Shabbat Shalom. I now invite up, gratefully, Shalom Gorden to open the doors of the Ark as we finally do get to gaze upon the Torah scrolls, not gaze. The Aleinu can be found on the top of page 282, actually the middle of page 282, as I turn to it. And if we're able, we may stand as you open the doors. Thank you, Shalom. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, la'teit gedula liotzer breshit, shel lo asanu kegoye haratzot, velo samanu kemishpechot ha'adama, shel lo sam chelkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim, Umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamachim hakadosh baruch hu. Now at the top of page 287. May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding, loved each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace. Together. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz. Bayom hahu, Yihyeh Adonai Echad, Ushemo Echad. Thank you, Shalom. And we may be seated. Shalom was in my Sinai school class, so I was glad never to look over at him and see him saying, that was nothing like what we did. Neither confirmed nor denied. At this point in the service, we move towards remembering those who we've recently lost and lost in years past. After I read these names, if you have any other personal losses or yard sites to share, I will be going around the room. And if anyone has names to add in the virtual format, you can type them in and they'll be shared with all others present. Recently, we remember Ellen Schomburg and the Reverend Dr. Günther Wasserberg. Over the last 30 days, the period of Shloshim, we remember Thor Wick Monteverde. Over the last year in the Avelut period, we remember Jim Ballantine, Eli Kane, David Stucker, Terry Gregory, Grayson Corbett, Joan F. Nutkin, Andrew Venuti, Gerald Kaufman, Goldie Brustein, Lucille Alexander, Stanley Brody, Edna Bailey, Jenna Deborah Dunif Castle, Will Spiegelman, Leonard Fusari, James Holly, Ken Hecht, Roberta Smallrish, Edward Gingold, and Cookie Javinsky. And we remember the art sites of Rabbi Chaim Asa, Dr. Jacob Silverman, Judy Middleton, Ida Friedlander, David Mitchell, Jean W. Fenton, Mikkel Shana Klodny, Francis Schumer Saper, Lori Frankel, Albert Abraham Levine, Annie Rubin, Julius Ashkin, Joanne Klein, Aaron Novick, and all those we mentioned. For them and for everyone mentioned online, Zikronam Livracha, we turn to page 294. If it is your custom, you can rise and join us for the Mourner's Kaddish. Yidkadal v'yidkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach hirutei ve'amlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, Ba'gala ubizman kariv ve'imru amen. Yehe shmei rabba mevarach le'alam ulalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'ishtabach v'itpa'ar v'tromam v'itnaseh. V'ithadar v'itale v'ithalal. Shemei dekudasha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Da'amiran be'alma ve'imru amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'imru amen. Zikronam livracha. As we're seated, Terry from the Temple Sinai Board of Directors will grace us with some announcements. They're right here.
So first, thanks to Aaron for leading this week's service. Thanks for stepping in, filling in. Let's see. Join us after service for challah and juice in the social hall. In-person onegs are back, and you can sign up to host one. And of course, there's the virtual oneg online. Let's see. We have events coming up tomorrow, Saturday, June 4th through Sunday, June 5th, Erev Shavuot. There's at 5 p.m. through 8 p.m. via Zoom. You can register at sinaireno.org/Shavuot for details. And 7 p.m. up late in the Silver State. That's with Temple Emmanuel and Rabbi Benjamin Katz. So that's a joint event. Everyone is welcome. Please try to join if you can. Sunday, June 5th, 9:30 to 11 a.m., Mini Mitzvah Day. Come help and beautify Temple Sinai's Adopt a Park at 2775 Apollo Way, Rito, which is just a couple of blocks from Temple Sinai. Bring gloves, tools, drinks, and snacks. And some of that's provided by the Social Action Committee. Please RSVP to Jane G at asustainableway.com. And I believe that is all I have.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you for greeting tonight. Thanks to Shalom and Nathan for participating. Thanks to Michael Gorden, our temple president, for running the live stream. Thanks to all of you for attending. Before we go to our oneg, I have one more song for us on page 365. Get to go way to the other side of the book. It's like Simchat Torah every day. We have Not by Might, entirely in English. Not by might and not by power, but by Spirit alone shall we all live in peace. Not by might and not by power, power by Spirit alone shall we all live in peace. The children sing, the children dream, all. And their tears may fall, but we'll hear them call, and another song will rise, another song will rise, and another song will rise. Not by might and not by power, power by Spirit alone, shall we all live in peace. Not by might, not by power, shalom. Means hello, goodbye, peace, and the guy in the corner. Thanks to everyone for joining on the virtual format, and I'll look forward to seeing all of you in the social hall for the Oneg and Kiddush.